Great to be here. So let's get on to the proper stuff. So yeah, we've got our last week exploring this image, this theme of the wheel of life. We'll be continuing the theme of the wheel, the path and the goal. So next week we'll be looking more at the path. Tonight's our last week looking at the wheel. So if you remember, this is a symbol of all these different realms of existence we may find ourselves in any time during our lives, perhaps. And that's the way we've been looking at it, almost like states of mind we can habit, but perhaps but the states of mind we have create the realm we live in. It's kind of how we experience things. It's a very strong symbol and a kind of powerful way of exploring kind of what life can be, and the states we can get in, and how we can get out as well. Some are good, some are not so good. So this evening we're going to have 3 personal talks, 3 short talks looking at 3 people looking at a realm that they were in and how they got out. Yeah, so a realm they're in and how they got out. So that'll be Pretti, Emma, and then me. And it's a delight because we're all friends, the 3 of us, and it's really lovely. You're both important to me in very different ways, so it's really lovely that we get to do this together as a bit of a team. And particularly thank you to Emma as well, because she asked her last Thursday or something, quite short notice, and she just stepped up and said yes. So, yeah, thank you. Great, so begin. So Pretti, up first.
Great. Hi everyone, lovely. So I'm going to be talking about the God realm, the realm of sensory delight and beauty. Yeah. So we're taught that what we really want to do is we want to aim for the old human realm, because there is the right balance of conditions for effective practice. Now, for quite a while, I've had a bit of a secretive view, where I was like, sure, the God realm does sound better, you know? And maybe I could just split my time between the 2 realms. And actually, I think probably I spent most of my life splitting my life between those 2 realms. And a bit of me sort of thought, well, what would go wrong if I just kept doing that? And yeah, so then I'm very grateful I was asked to reflect on giving this talk, because actually, quite a lot can go wrong actually, and I feel like loads of really helpful reflections have come from this. So I'm going to talk about the kind of insidious ways the God realm isn't quite so shiny and dreamy as it might seem. And yeah, it's the realm of sensory delight and beauty, but that means it's also a realm of intoxication and complacency. And it can be very self-centered, a self-centered way of being, which can disregard others and disregard interconnectedness. So all my life, my sensory relationship to the world has been dialed up quite high. So I thought I'd just illustrate this with a little story, kind of a broad sensory spectrum. So I first went to India when I was 3. And my mum told me that when she got me off the plane, I was absolutely horrified by all the flies everywhere. And then she told me, and then like a day later, there'd been this big family puja. And then she said I kept sort of going and finding flower petals so I could sort of keep putting them on her head. So I think all my life I've really been dialed into the senses and the pleasures of that, and the horrors actually. So this big part of my life is sort of through the lens of sensory delight. And that's been sort of realizing the preciousness of these wonderful things we can experience. I desperately don't want those things to come to an end. And that's something I've been thinking about these last weeks, all these different examples of that. So one example was when I was an 8-year-old little child and I went to Canada, and I got these amazing stickers, like these particularly amazing stickers. And what I've now witnessed when I give, say, my nieces and nephews stickers is within about 5 minutes, they are stuck on all the surfaces around you. But I was different. I knew how rare and special my stickers were. So instead of sticking them anywhere, what I did is I brought them back home, and I had this sort of letter writing box, and I had a false bottom. So I kind of took that out and put all my stickers in there. And every now and then I just open up this box and just sit and look at them. And I didn't stick them anywhere. I just kept them because they were too precious. I didn't want them to be over and to end. So this theme, not wanting something to be over, this trend in my being continues. So I'm on to the last episode of a show called This Is Us, and I won't watch the last episode because then it'll be over. Aria Das has discovered in my treats cupboard, I'll often have whole Easter eggs still at Christmas. And this year I had 2 chocolate Santas at Easter. And I remember my favourite author finally released a new book back in 2017. So I was really thrilled because I love her writing. And I started reading it and I was enjoying it so much I stopped and I thought, I'll wait a few years until I've sort of forgotten it and I'll start again. And I still haven't started that book again. So these are quite light-hearted examples, but actually what they are, they're symptoms of a much deeper issue of accepting loss and that things end. And actually, one day I'll lose everything and everyone I love. That is what these are a symptom of. These are just sort of light-hearted expressions of that. So these last weeks at sangha night, I've been really enjoying looking at this image of the wheel of life. And who's really been taking my attention is Yama. So Yama is this like great beast who's like holding the wheel. He's the Lord of Death. So he's this massive symbol for all the great inescapable truth of the universal impermanence. That's what Yama represents on the wheel. And we suffer because we crave to keep all the pleasant experiences going. So I suffer because I crave to keep all the pleasant experiences going. So in the God realm, so we know that on each realm, a different Buddha appears with a different sort of balm or antidote to help the beings in that realm. In the God realm, a white Buddha appears and he plays the melody of impermanence on a lute. So the transience of the music reminds the gods that their experiences are impermanent. Now, I actually still have those stickers I told you about. So I'll show you. And really hilariously, they are some classical instruments and some tiny mice singing carols. So they're musical stickers. So I was thinking, oh, so I've had this symbol of music all my life and it's not quite done it for me, actually. So for me, it's looking up into Yama's fierce eyes. That's what I need to strike impermanence into my heart. I need Padmasambhava to say to me, pay urgent attention to impermanence. That's what I need. And actually, that's why I think I really love time in graveyards. If you know me, I really enjoy a walk or a bit of time sitting in a graveyard, because I think when I'm there, I just like let in the truth that, death isn't as scary as it seems, and the ending of things isn't as scary as it seems. And actually, there's a lot of beauty and peace when you're in a graveyard. And it's quite a relief, actually. So what I've realized is that the pleasures that are tied into these sensory desires, well, what they really are is they're pleasures with this sort of, like a cartoon anvil that like is going to drop on someone's head at any moment. There's like this anvil of dukkha just hanging over the beings in the God realm, because at any point it's going to fall and it's going to be over. And the spiral path off of the wheel, the spiral path starts with dukkha. So actually, if you embrace dukkha, shraddha emerges, confidence emerges. And then out of that comes joy, rapture, calm, bliss. Like, the spiral path keeps unfolding. So I can choose to live my days clinging to pleasure with this sort of threat of dukkha over my head. Or I can kind of step into dukkha and turn towards acceptance and sort of allow the spiral path to unfold. So this is what I'm turning my practice to now. Another facet of the God realm that I want to talk about is sort of the attitude that leads to losing true connection with others. So simply put, gods don't get no's. So no's, like a no. Yeah. It did sound a bit like no's, actually. Yeah. So gods will do what is needed to get what they want from others. And if actually they don't get what they want, if they get rejected, well, it shatters them. So again, another anvil of dukkha comes crashing down on them. So Edward asked me if I would ask my sort of favourite local independent haunts for maybe potential prize donations for the garden party, which is a great idea. And I noticed I kept putting it off, like going and talking to them about this. And I realised, I'm really scared that I'm going to get a no, and I don't want that. And that was what was behind that. And it's like I'd been trying, every now and then I'd think about it, and I was trying to get some sort of reliable spiel, I could say, to try and get a yes. Like I was trying to be a bit manipulative, basically. So I was in Estate on Saturday and I spotted this like tangle I was in. So I thought, right, I'll just drop it and do it differently. I'll ask like completely differently to how I might have. And I went over and I talked to the lovely person. And first of all, just gave like an open-handed invitation to come to the garden party. So that was just nice in itself. And then I did ask about the donation, but I did it really softly and really open-handedly. And And because that conversation, I wasn't tied into getting the outcome I wanted. It was just a conversation, and I wasn't sort of imposing my will onto another human being. I was just a human being with another human being having a nice chat. I just left feeling quite soft from that. And therefore I stayed connected. So that's sort of, the getting out of the God realm, staying connected. Now, the only thing is I might not get that prize, Edward, because I was quite gentle. But I was ethically clean with how I asked, and that's what matters. If anyone wants to donate, really good prizes for the summer fair. I mean, the garden party. So going back to my original wrong view about the God realm, so what was sort of fueling that was this thought that, what I figured, this sort of secret view I had was because part of me thought, all the best joys surely are to be had on the God realm. But actually, what I've been doing these last 2 weeks is I've been recalling the best joys of my life, and what they were and why they were wonderful. And actually, all of them were wonderful because of the immense amount of connection between me and my loved ones and my friends, or even with strangers, like that sense when you're all really connecting together. So an example was when I got married last year, there was this moment during the ritual when all my loved ones were coming and making offerings, and we were chanting mantra together. And I just had this huge, deep happiness because we all just loved each other in that moment. And I thought of a memory being in actually a huge crowd of strangers, but everybody having this enjoyment and appreciation of the same performance. And again, we were us all being connected through that. And then countless pujas on retreat at Tara Loka, and this magic that comes alive through all of us together, like kind of harnessing our energies together. And I think what happens in all those examples, you get a bit of a loss of like the tight boundaries around us. And again, you're sort of more in the flow of other beings. So yes, I feel like I really realized these last couple of weeks, the best joys of life, they're up in the spiral path. They're far beyond the sort of small self-gratifications of the God realm. So a little summary, there's always dukkha. So take the dukkha maybe beneath your feet instead of having it over your head, sort of looming over you. If you know you're somebody who frequents the God realm, maybe look at, are you able to hear a no? And maybe practice getting rejected in sort of the example I gave, like quite a low stakes sort of situation, like, can you get rejected and it be all right, actually? And that the joys that come out of practice and connection, they are greater than the pleasures of the God realm. And just a couple of questions for the groups later, just to wonder about, how are you with endings? Do you cling on to things and not want them to end? And what are the greatest joys of your life? Great. Thanks, everyone.
Is the mic working? Woo. Cool. I'm a bit weird about time, so I'm going to set my own timer, but I'll also look out for the flower. Oh, so it definitely won't put down there, will it? Oh, Edward, I might need you to help. Maybe I can just, maybe that, there we go. Yeah, perfect, okay. Can I be heard? Yeah, great. I'll be 2 moments. Okay. So I get my notes out. Hello, everybody. I was just really moved by your talk as well, Pretti. That was so beautiful. It was really lovely. And also, I'm going to lower the tone. I was like, oh gosh. So I'm going to talk about the Hal Realm. And as in preparation for the talk, I listened to Pranjahridaya's talk on the Hal Realm from a few weeks ago. Is that sounding okay? It sounds a bit echoey. Is that all right? Which I would really recommend. Really, really, really beautiful talk. So I would re-listen to that. I'll just start by saying what is the Hal Realm? Just being reminded of that. And it's at the bottom of the wheel because it is the place where we experience the most suffering, both mental and physical. And it's characterized by a mental state full of hate and aversion. And Pranjahridaya said something I thought was really powerful, the way he said it. It said, it was a place of deep oppression, which I thought, I don't know, there was something quite visceral about that. So that's what I'm talking about. And as Pretti mentioned, so in each realm, realm, and in the Hal realm, it is the vase of nectar, and it's the nectar of deathlessness. And this is a deeply soothing balm to counter all suffering. So yeah, so I'm going to talk about my personal experiences of the Hal realm. And I don't know what to say. When Pranjahridaya asked me to talk about the realms, I was like, how's my realm? Weirdly clear about that. And it was really lovely to hear praise was God. But yeah, so I'm going to talk about my personal experience of the Hal realm, and also my experience of the balm of that nectar. And it's been slightly tricky to prepare for it, partly because of the time, but partly because I feel like the Hal realm is like deeply personal and also deeply universal. Everybody will have had some experience of that, some flavour, and we all kind of know what it means, but it will manifest quite differently. So I'm going to talk about my personal experience of it and my personal experience of the one, but I don't have a monopoly on it. This isn't this is what you do and how you get out. This is just my experience, but hopefully it will be helpful. So Padmavajra spoke quite helpfully about the different kinds of hell. So we've said physical and mental, but also loss and betrayal. So all the worst human experiences that all of us will have had a flavour of. And I'm going to talk about my own predominant experience of hell, which is within mental pain and mainly depression. And like with all of these things, there's a myriad of conditions that lead to these sorts of things. But I'm going to talk about my internal conditions that have led to depression. So it's something I've lived with most of my life. So from about the age of 14 and peaked around the age of 28, which is a bit about what I'll talk about. And it became increasingly, the episodes became increasingly longer and increasingly severe. And my experience of that, and as anybody knows, there'll be people in the room that have had depression. It's quite hard to talk about, actually. It's quite a hard experience to talk about. But a deep aversion to myself, others, and life. And really the word that kept coming up to me was disconnection, a real disconnection. And that disconnection being so painful about just pushing everything away. And I didn't really think that I mattered or other people mattered or anything that we did mattered. So a very kind of nihilistic, meaningless kind of place. And just deeply lonely place to be. And one of the ways I used to describe it at the time was, you know, those big adult hamster wheels that you can get in and roll down hills, which is like an odd thing because it's not fun. But yeah, being in one of those hamster wheels, so kind of seeing things, but just not quite feeling like you can touch anything or feel connected. So that was my experience of depression. And when I've been reflecting on that and the deep pain of that, it's really kind of having the compassion that as humans, when we experience that kind of deep pain, whether it be physical or mental, it's really natural to want to soothe ourselves, like to pick up tools and things to try and make us feel better. And depending on our conditions will be dependent on what we pick up to make ourselves feel better in that time. And the tools I had were not ideal. So in order to make myself try and feel better, I picked up alcohol and food and dieting and exercise and unwise relationships and deep isolation. Actually, I really isolated myself from people. And obviously those things caused a much greater suffering and greater disconnection. And by the time I was 28, it really was quite unbearable, and I really couldn't imagine life continuing in this state. It was really painful, and although I didn't see it then, it really was my greatest gift because I had the gift of desperation, and it really gave me the willingness to pick up tools and ideas and things I would not have considered before unless I was in that much pain. So I gave up drinking. I started some meditation. I started going to the Buddhist center, and I let go of some relationships and I lent into others and was more vulnerable. And I was reflecting on my experience of the Buddhist center and meditation at that time. And the thing that really occurs to me is gentleness, just real gentleness, which when you're in that much pain is so important. real gentleness and kindness and absolute so much patience. And I started coming to the centre in London, and it's very easy to be anonymous there. So I went for about a year without talking to anybody, but I would just sit, and I might be offered a cup of tea, but I'd be left alone, and I just felt safe. And I think if anybody had tried to do anything, I'd have run. You know, I was so fragile. So just that patience and gentleness, just really taught me that slowly that I was worthy of love, actually, and that I did matter, and what I did mattered, and actually gave me that connection that I was really craving for, and started to ease that suffering very slowly. And I was also introduced to figures like Amitabha, Vajrasattva and Green Tara, and those figures more and more began to provide solace and gave me a sort of faith in something greater, that I could, even if I couldn't imagine other people would care about me, I could just about imagine that they were big enough to care. And slowly but surely, I left the Hal Realm for longer and longer periods. But it does take time, and those balms work bit by bit. And I just wanted to share also about just simple pleasures of beauty. My friends know that I love bird watching and the Beatles, and those things in that level of pain, which some of you know, are just so precious. Those things that are just truthful and beautiful are also little doorways, I think, to the Dharma. And yeah, just to get current, as some of you know, my current sort of touching of the Hal Realm is that my best friend's been diagnosed with terminal cancer, and in the recent weeks things have been quite dark. Thankfully, she's actually turned a bit of a corner, and she's doing quite well at the moment. But obviously, I've been reflecting a lot about this topic, and although this experience has been deeply painful, it hasn't felt like hell, actually. It hasn't felt like hell, because I felt deeply connected to her, to myself, to my friends, to Tara, to Vajrasattva. And I have different tools now that I can pick up and have picked up. Meditation and friendship, and really leading into the help of my friends. And it felt really significant to me. I turned 40 during this time, and thanks. Some of my friends grouped together to buy me some Beatles records, and we went to go see the Puffins. And, they were real moments of joy in a time that was really difficult. Aware of time, but I'll just finish up. I just wanted to say that about the transcendental, so the nectar of deathlessness. Padma-Vajra really beautifully said that what is deathless transcends this wheel. Ultimately, friends, Tara, that's really what enables us to transcend that realm. And really all there is love and connection, and that's the truth. So I just want to end really quickly with a poem that I knew before this happened, but it just feels so pertinent to me at the moment. So it's by a lady called Lynn Ungar. So, and when your body has become still, reach out with your heart. Know that we are connected in ways that are terrifying and beautiful. You could hardly deny it now. Know that our lives are in one another's hands. Surely that has become clear. Do not reach out your hands, reach out your heart, reach out your words, reach out all the tendrils of compassion that move invisibly where we cannot touch. Promise this world your love, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, so long as we shall live.
Thank you, Emma. Perfect. Like ideally we'd have like a 5-minute break between each talk, but here we go, we're rolling on. So I'm going to be talking about how I got out of the Asura realm, the realm of the Titans, or I should say how I'm in the process of getting out. This is actually still work in progress, definitely still work in progress, though I have made progress. So to remind you, so the Titan realm, the Asura realm, is this one here. Yeah. So this is a realm of fierce competition and battle for power. So the traditional image, you see all these kind of muscular men with swords fighting it out, fighting for victory and supremacy. And they're also fighting with the gods. So they're fighting for the wish-fulfilling tree, so the tree that grants everything you could possibly desire. So the Titans, the Asuras, they desire happiness. They're looking for perfect happiness, but they're going about it in completely the wrong way. They think they can find all that they desire through power and competition, through kind of being, top dog, beating everyone else and being dominant over others. And they think that'll work. So yeah, the Titan realm is also, well, another way of saying this is it's dominated by the mental poison of pride. So that's like this poison, this kind of mental tendency to think that somehow we're the center of the universe. We're more important than anyone else. So this briefly is the Titan realm. And yeah, those of you who know me somewhat might be thinking, well, Pranjahridaya, you didn't tell me you used to be this kind of warring, raging Titan battling for power over others and dominating others. What gives? Yeah. But look again, right? Look again. And perhaps look at yourselves again, actually. This is an image. It's not literally what is happening. Look again. Yeah, from a very young age, I believed that I could attain happiness by being special, by being exceptional in some sort of way, by being someone who achieves, being someone who's like really good, That's how I thought I could kind of live a good life. So a little bit of history around this. So I was quite a sensitive and insecure child. I found life pretty overwhelming, dangerous, frightening at times, at least at times. So I'd cry a lot, I'd get upset easily, I'd had lots of nightmares about death and suffering. Life was a bit scary. So got to school and teachers started saying, oh, you're doing really well, keep that up, you're doing good. And particularly, when exams started coming in, you say, oh, you're getting good results, keep this up and you'll live a really good life, you'll get the job, all will be well. So, oh, fantastic, here's a way that I can really gain control over my life, I can gain security. So yeah, life is dangerous and unpredictable, but if I can just, do really well, be really good, get the grades, then surely that will be a good life, yeah? Oh, and maybe, find a romantic partner along the way who also realizes just how amazing I am. Surely that would be great. Interestingly, it wasn't, I wasn't particularly interested in being like really visibly superior or visibly competing or kind of trying to attain kind of a position of power, like external power, which is how we often might talk about this realm, like particularly in forms of maybe like politicians and high-flying business people, really trying to get to the top and be like, I'm going to beat you, whatever. I wanted to actually feel quietly superior. That was the kind of security, to believe I was special, but also not particularly noticed. So like, think of, say, like Superman, who has this alter ego, Clark Kent, having this simple desk job, but secretly knows he's Superman. And maybe a few other people know as well. And this draws out another aspect of pride, actually, which is this kind of not wanting to be noticed as well, which I think can be a form of thinking we're lower or the same as others, clinging to needing to be the same as others or even lower than others. So we're actually afraid of standing out, afraid of actually bringing our positive qualities out into the open to other people, witness that and allow it to grow. That can be a form of pride as well. And I think I found this tendency particularly difficult to become aware of in myself, because it does often take, this pride does often take the form in things which are actually potentially quite good, quite positive, or at least neutral. But they become contaminated by this poison of pride. So some examples of ways I've tried to make a life out of being special. So being intelligent, being a top student, being a really good boyfriend, being a great mathematician, being a good person, having a higher vision of life, being someone who is changing the world, being someone with a strong meditation practice, being a committed Dharma practitioner, even being someone who gives great Dharma talks. It was quite a weird experience actually preparing this, like trying to write a good talk about not needing to write a good talk. It's quite confusing, like weird irony. Anything I found can become hijacked by this poison of pride, so this desire to feel that I'm actually pretty central to this whole business of life. And it's painful, it is not fun, and I'm fed up with it, actually, increasingly fed up with it. But I do wonder if there might actually be quite a lot of this kind of secret Titan activity that goes unchallenged in the modern world, maybe even going on in this room right now. I'm not actually thinking of anyone in particular, but I thought that would be quite a fun, provocative thing to say. Anyway. So what am I doing about this? So when we look at the traditional image, we see a Buddha offering a sword. Sometimes it's a flaming sword. So it's the sword of wisdom. So the sword that cuts through all delusion, particularly through the delusion of the separateness of self and other. Because this delusion is the root of pride, this kind of delusion of separateness. And according to Buddhist tradition, it's actually the root of all suffering, actually, or root of all real suffering. And looking back at my life so far, what I feel made a crucial difference, perhaps the crucial difference, was actually choosing to commit myself to a path of growth and self-transcendence, trying to realize and participate in something much bigger than me. So kind of channeling that energy, that kind of desire to be something, to do something well, into something which is actually the sort of seed of its own destruction, if that makes sense. Yeah, trying to actualize something much bigger than myself, which for me has taken the form of gradually and progressively committing to practicing within this community, the Triratna Buddhist community. So looking at this Buddha with the sword, or the flaming sword, I kind of relate this act of commitment to the act of wielding the sword. So having something worth fighting for and committing to that. So actualizing our warrior energy, committing to following through the particular path, through all the ups and downs that will inevitably follow. Which hasn't actually come naturally to me, interestingly, but I think the sangha does its magic, really. So yeah, I became a mitra, and in time, through practice, going on retreats, I realized I believed that transformation of consciousness, I feel, is actually the most important and valuable thing in this life, because consciousness underpins everything. And so this was the cause I felt was really worth fighting for. So the war against greed, hatred, and delusion. So those poisons that underlie all suffering, whether that's experienced, generated internally, or whether it's inflicted by humans onto each other. So then I asked for ordination. I decided that this was the quest I wanted to dedicate my life to. I felt it was that important. And even felt actually at the time that on the basis of that kind of belief, that I felt like consciousness, transformation of consciousness was the most important thing. I felt like if I didn't actually try to dedicate myself to that, I felt it was kind of betrayal to myself and to the world, actually. That's how I experienced it and still do. So how does this all relate to going beyond pride? Because you could think that this could just play right into, thinking, okay, I'm going to dedicate myself to the thing I think is most important in life. Surely that could just make me feel even more important. I'm doing this really important thing. And I think this kind of is and isn't the case. So thankfully, the genius of the Dharma is that it works. So if we do commit ourselves to the truth, we will be transformed by it. It cannot but transform us. And it will not let us get away with pride for very long, because pride is at odds with the way things really are. So yeah, my motivations to practice were and still are definitely mixed. I have to say that. But gradually my inflated sense of self-importance is reducing. I'm really pleased to report. And this has been liberating, but it's also at times been actually quite humiliating and devastating even. Times where the ground has just gone completely. I remember particularly solitary retreat. It's like that kind of whole edifice or kind of built up sense of myself just vanished, at least for a little while. And it was I felt completely groundless, completely useless, like I was nobody. Quite devastating, painful. Very challenging time, but it was also a really beautiful time. Very beautiful. Like love really started to open up. Metta started to kind of pour through when that breakage happened, when that kind of death was happening. I remember actually feeling quite ecstatic at time, even in relation to this vision of love that was just pouring in through the Dharma, particularly reading the book Living with Kindness by Sangha. I feel like that's such an incredible book. Highly recommend that. And more, it's the practice of love, of metta, which I kind of keep coming back to. Particularly, actually, the first stage, of metta bhavana, learning to really love and value myself. In reality, you can't really separate, loving ourselves and others. We kind of have to do both. But nonetheless, for me, I've noticed a particular kind of bottleneck in really learning to love and embrace myself, which feels like more and more I'm having to really pay attention to that, to allow this kind of greater love to unfold. And I do think what the Titans, probably most Titans are really looking for is actually love. Particularly perhaps even, to be able to unconditionally love themselves. It's kind of this sort of, if there's love, then we don't need pride. Love is a complete affirmation of our being. And particularly be able to give that to ourselves. If we can't do that, of course, we're going to be looking to big ourselves up in all kinds of artificial ways. So yeah, I've spent a lot of my Dharma life quite strongly and idealistically trying to transform myself, trying to change myself to become a better person. And I'm so glad I've done this. I'm so, so grateful that I embarked on this quest and have come to the Buddhist Center and been given that the tools to do that. But I'm actually now finding myself in a sort of, it seems like almost a seemingly paradoxical position of the next step in that quest actually being to fully embrace myself as I am, to love and accept all of myself. I would have seen that as a kind of failure or contradiction in the past, but but that's what I feel like I need to do now. That feels like that's where the love is really emerging, not just for myself as well. And through that, who I really could become, I'm gradually seeing is actually emerging, sort of in and through love. Yeah, thank you.